So this is the second one that appeared in the poll. The second gamer. This is the runner-up. This is Odds talking about the future of tunneling in DBD, because obviously with the nerf of DS, tunneling is kind of free. Most characters, even if you do get that DS stun, you can kind of just show up and just clap them immediately after too. So it's kind of people just kind of tunnel whenever now. So I'm interested to see his take about it.
Hello friends, this is Odds with a p-value of 0.1, and today I have a bit of a pessimistic prediction to make about the state of Dead by Daylight in the near...
I hate that about me, because like when Odds comes out and he says I have a little bit of a pessimistic take, I feel like I have a lot of pessimistic takes about the game. They always come from a good place. Like I'm always trying to like care about like the health and future of the game. I feel like I have a lot of pessimistic takes. Like I feel like I'm always like this could kill the game if we're not careful. But I legitimately feel that way, so I don't know. I'm not gonna be like, I'm not gonna lie to you, right? I'm not gonna tell you something sweet because I want to have like, I want things to be sunshine and rainbows. If I don't feel like there's sunshine and rainbows, I won't say it. Yeah.
Future. This is not something that I want to happen, but it's something that I'm afraid will happen. I'm going to walk you through my logic and my reasoning, and at the end of it all, you feel free to agree, disagree, give me your own opinions. This has to do with the meta shakeout and the state of tunneling. As we all know, some time ago the devs changed a bunch of the strongest perks in the game and the most popular ones to try to spice up the gameplay, but people don't like it. People complain about the gameplay now even more than before. They complain about tunneling being even more prevalent than before.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would people tunnel more? Tunneling being hooking the same survivor repeatedly, aggressively to get them out of the way. Why would killers do that more now? In the past, if we go back a few months, in Dead by Daylight, the base kit BT was not a thing. If you got on
like, you think a content creator as big as Otch doesn't have someone that works for behavior that's just like, hey, I like your content. You wanna know something real quick? you think Otch freaking Darva, one of the most popular content creators for this game, doesn't have someone at behavior going like, hey, don't say anything, but like, this is what's happening. You think he doesn't have that? Like, he definitely does. He definitely does. He may not do anything about it, but he definitely does.
You could immediately get hit and down again in like 1 second and get on the hook again. If we go even further into DBD's history, you could get immediately hit after an unhook and then immediately moried, because moris worked after one hook back in the day. And if we go even further and further and further, there was a time when killers could down you at the start of the game and just more you, and you would be dead within 30 seconds of the game starting.
Fun.
So I think it's pretty clear that tunneling now is a lot harder than before, at least if we go back into DBD's history. So why do people do it more? Because it's more necessary. The state of the meta right now is at a point where having 4 survivors alive in no matter what shape they are is horribly difficult for the killer and horribly scary. Even if you have 4 survivors that are all injured, all dead on hook, all at the end of the rope, 4 survivors in this situation can bounce back with 4 adrenalines, 4 hopes, endgame perks, medkits, boons, what have you, and it is very difficult for killers to manage this. On the flip side, if we have
with certain perks, yes. With certain perks, yeah. Like, we were talking about the perks that are like... We were talking about the perks that were really, really frustrating. Like, really, really frustrating. That survivors run. With those, yeah. Objectively, 4 survivors together being hard to beat, like in a close to end game or end game situation, I don't think so. I mean, unless they're in communication with each other, like, I don't know. We had that, for example, we were playing earlier. We were technically a 3-stack, no comms, running only fun perks. I was running the most meta stuff, and that was like hyper focus and dead hard, and that was it. Everything else on my build wasn't meta. And like Des was running like repressed alliance and fun stuff like that. Like we lost because that knight had brought quad slowdown into the game, and we got down to like 2 gens, right? Like by his standard, we should have won that, right? Because we are so powerful, just being 4 survivors who are alive. Yeah, it's too situational. It's more based on like what did you bring and like the level of comms involved. It's not like there's 4 survivors up and alive, so therefore, you know, I don't know.
Survivors left because we've tunneled one of them
Maps
off.
too.
It doesn't
Maps is
matter
another
what
good
state
example.
they're in. Even if
Depends
they're
on
all
the map.
healthy, even if none of them have been hooked, with 3 survivors left, 1 good kick on a generator with Eruption Call O'Brien, a down shortly after, someone hit by Eruption, bam, suddenly 3 survivors are completely useless, and
Yep.
it's a lot more manageable as a killer.
That's what happened in that night game. That night game I just brought up, that's what kept happening. We kept just having to redo gens over and over, kept being in-capped, and it's like, it didn't matter that we were all alive. It just didn't matter. Like, the gens literally just, like, the perks he brought literally just nullified any sort of pressure we could put out. And literally the only thing we could have done was bring more meta builds, or be on comms, or both. That was literally the only option, is should have brought better perks forehead, or been on comms. That was it.
Killers have a massive incentive to tunnel a person out. So how do we fix this situation? Well,
you remember I had that match Monday. I was playing Pinhead, and I brought Jolt by itself. That was my only meta perk, Jolt. I had I think I had Stabiffle. It's kind of meta. Yeah, we could throw that in there. 2 meta perks, Stabiffle and Jolt, and then I had like barbecue and something else, right? Like, I was running a really fairly weak build on Pinhead, and they did the first gen in like 30 seconds, and I was like, whoa, hold on, and I found out later it was a BNP. And then they were stacking on Prove, and they did like the next 2 gens really quick, and I was like, oh god, and then what did I do, right? I tunneled, right? I won that match, but I had to tunnel my pants off. I had to tunnel my pants off to win that match. I had to tunnel like crazy. But I did it as a response, right? I did it as a response, to what was happening, right? I did a response to what was happening, because they decided that, hey, this match is going in 2 seconds. I'm like, relax, stay a while. Jeez.
There's still ways to fix this situation, roughly speaking, and this is the problem. The issue that I'm going to talk into this video mainly is how this will be solved and what will happen as a result. Let's try first to buff the survivors that come out of the hook so that they are stronger and harder to tunnel. We could do things such as making the endurance last longer, or making it stronger so it's harder for the killer to hit the survivor repeatedly.
The problem with endurance right off hook is like what he just said. I paused right as he said it. Is that like, if you come back to hook and you guys have seen me do this when I've had to tunnel. I just hit their endurance. I don't wait for 12 seconds. I just smack them, right? And you're like, well, they get a speed burst. Be careful about that. I'm like, yeah, but like also like they could have base kit at BT, or they could have off the record, and I'm waiting for no reason, right? So I mostly just smack them right as they come off hook. So like, it doesn't matter if you extend the endurance, because most people just hit you to get the endurance out of the way like immediately, right? So you got to have a way to like not to somehow block that immediate follow-up hit that is going to inevitably happen. So basically doesn't do anything. Exactly.
After an unhook, so we could do that. We could even make it so the endurance stuns the killer momentarily to dissuade them from focusing on the same survivor. You could even make that survivor get 3% faster, or some other number, so that they're harder to catch. And then if you hook a survivor twice, now they're 6% faster. So they're super hard to catch, unless you go for someone else, or unless they touch a gen, and then that disables. So you could give them a permanent speed boost, and that would make it super hard for many killers to quickly tunnel a person out. You could also make it so that if a killer hooks the same person twice in a row, which is a bit of tunneling, now the gens are faster for everyone else. Or
I feel like we had a good anti-tunnel measure in old DS. It was just tied to a perk, right? The fear of DS made people tunnel less, but it was just tied to a perk. Is there some way we could like integrate that more into a gameplay flow? Not like just give everybody the old DS based kit, but like kind of like, like we did with like borrowed time, try to figure out some way to implement that into the gameplay flow. Because the reason people didn't tunnel back in the day is because if they had DS, that was a time sink. You wasted time, and time in DBD is gen time. So like if you put the fear of God in them and make them think that they're wasting their time, Like, they won't do it. People won't do things that are time inefficient in DBD because time is like the most important resource in Dead by Daylight. Wasting time is silly, so you won't do it. So you got to make it time inefficient for them to tunnel somehow. And like what he's trying to do is like buy the time back later by making the gen speeds faster if they tunnel somebody out quickly. But I think you should just make it time inefficient to tunnel. Like, make it a risk that is scary. That way they feel like, you know, maybe this isn't a good idea.
Or if you want to go the extra mile, you could make it so that if one person dies, now all of the gens go much, much faster for the remaining survivors. And in my opinion,
yeah, that doesn't make sense.
These ideas seem nice at first glance, but they are the most dangerous. They are tricky to balance.
Yep.
Because if you make survivors very, very strong after the unhook, then the survivors will actively want to be hooked and will actually want the killer to hook multiple of them so that multiple people can benefit from this. So much like sometimes you get people coming and body blocking with off the record, you would have survivors that would want you to tunnel them, that would want to run in front of you and use their little advantages to force you to tunnel so that the
What did I say at the beginning of the day? What is wrong with our community and wanting to just exploit the hell out of things? We have a little community that just loves every time that they can use something to rob the fun of someone else, they go for it hook, line, and sinker. We have a little gremlin community. Not you guys. You guys are fine. Most of you guys are great. But like most of the Dead by Daylight community are little gremlins who just love having fun at someone else's expense. Having fun by taking away someone else's. And if you don't balance around that really like gremlin, like nasty mentality that so much of this community has, you're gonna create more problems than you solve. Boil over, perk all over again? Literally that. I'm a gremlin. Nope. Yeah, that's the perfect analogy, Reaper. Literally.
Benefits from this. And this would feel awful and would actually defeat the point. The killers in this situation would actually want to tunnel even more than before because they realize that it's much better to power through all of these things on one person than to hook 2 or 3 people and then all of them potentially can hit you with all of these side effects. So I don't think this would be the better way to do it. It would make the unhooking survivors want to be very aggressive overall. The more safe approach would be to actually encourage the killer by buffing them strategically every time they hook multiple survivors. Or they split the pressure on multiple survivors. So we could have a thanatophobia-like effect that makes gens slower or some other effect. The more people are injured, to buff the killer for splitting pressure on survivors, which right now they don't get much of that. They could also be given a gift of pain-like effect, which makes survivors that have been hooked do gens slower. Which would be fair. That way, if you hook multiple people, instead of focusing on one, now multiple people are hit by a debuff. And we could also have versions of Grim Embrace, which blocks gens if you hook everyone, and No Way Out, which blocks and delays gates if you hook multiple people as well.
Remember that whole last video I spent talking about how gen focus is bad for the game? Remember that whole video I spent? The Coco video talking about how gen focus is bad for the health of the game. So yeah, this is just kind of all a bunch of gen focus, isn't it? People don't want to play the game around the gens. People don't want to play the game around the gens. They really don't. They really don't. Only the people who are like slimy nerds who only care about winning. Those are the only people who care. Those are the only people who care. And we should not be catering to them. We should not cater to that player base. I'm gonna run for president and my slogan's gonna be make Chase great again. Make Chase great again. Just make Remaining Survivors God mode. Both of these ideas are just like, it's so simple to fix tunneling. Not like fully simple because they would have done it, but like, you know, it's like tunneling is like stop them from pursuing the same person over and over. That is the theory. But people come up with like just like crazy stuff like this, you know? They come up with crazy stuff like let's just give Thanaphobia to everybody. Let's just give gift of pain to everybody. Give it to them. No Way Out, base kit. River Brace, base kit. They just like, they just come up with these like wacky ideas to get around. Please don't hit the same person off hook, please. like literally like I've said this before, and it's funny, is it's like technically they could just fix tunneling if they wanted, right? Like if they really wanted, they could give you like, here's a weird example. What if you're just like, what if you just don't have collision until you like approach like an objective or like a fellow teammate, like like they did with DS, which was honestly another fine solution for all this. They like theoretically behavior could hit that switch whenever they want. That's relatively easy to implement. It's just that behavior doesn't care. Behavior is cool with tunneling, like something like that. They could literally turn that on regardless of how you feel. Like they could literally just turn off your collision or something like that. They could delete tunneling in a day, but they don't want to. They don't want to. Yeah, barbecue and chili was also an incentive to tunneling because like you got literally rewarded with more blood points for not tunneling. So I don't know why they did that either, but yeah. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like they don't care. So like it kind of leaves us as like players and creators to be like, well, what do we do about it? And it's like it's ultimately up to them to fix, and they're just kind of like, whatever. It's just like, so people come up with these like really wacky ideas to like de-incentivize tunneling instead of just tackling tunneling directly. It's just I don't know. I don't know about that. Like old DS was a very good de-incentivizer for tunneling, so was old barbecue. They changed both those perks, and I am fully for having both of those effects not be tied to perks. Because like perk-based gameplay is annoying. We were talking about that earlier. But like going into like Hannah being base kit, they have to pay base kit. Let's make survivors stronger when somebody dies. It's just like, what are we doing? They don't, Loner. They don't. That is like behavior's primary problem as like a game company, is they fight tooth and nail to fight all this stuff, and I don't know why. Like so many other game companies like do balance changes all the time, like just little ones just here and there, just like, yeah, whatever. That's a problem. We'll get rid of that. That's a problem. We'll get rid of that. That's a problem. We'll change that. Like they don't want to do anything. They're just like, no, we did a good job, whatever. And they don't want to. They don't want to listen to feedback, and it's why the game is always so miserable all the time.
So these effects would be there to make it so that if the killer hooks multiple people, they have something going for them. So now the killer would have a meaningful choice between focusing on one survivor and then the other three are in pretty good shape, or spreading the hooks across the survivors, and now all of them are hit by various debuffs to make the playing field a bit more even.
Here's the other thing, here's the other thing. Like, without the Gen Rush versus Gen Slowdown meta, tunneling isn't necessary, right? Some people always tunnel at the beginning, and we should still, like, if we want that to go away, we should still address it. But I think tunneling across the board would go down if it wasn't such a meta v meta game. Like if gens didn't go fast, less people would tunnel. Some people will always tunnel, and like I said, that's a can of worms we got to open, right? But like, some people tunnel just because like gens go fast and they want to win, and they didn't bring like triple quad slowdown, so they're just getting pooped on,
But this next bit, which I think is the better one, has two massive problems. Number one, if these few changes that I've suggested roughly came to the game tomorrow, they would make the top tier killers absolutely unbeatable. Oh, yeah. If you had a nurse with all of her strong perks, all of her strong add-ons, and then you give her these effects, she would never lose a game.
Top 5.
Same with Blight.
Spirit, Wesker, Artist, I feel like they would be obnoxious with these. Even the top 5. And diminishingly so the top 10. They would be obnoxious with these. Obnoxious. Absolutely obnoxious.
Same with other strong killers that are already very, very strong. So these changes could only come to the game, or something close to these changes could only come to the game if you nerf many of the strongest killers, many of the strongest perks, many of the strongest add-ons. And this would piss some killer players off so much.
Why is tunneling bad in the first place? Because when you do it at 4 or 5 gens, you just delete somebody from the game, They don't get to play. They don't get any input. There's no counterplay to it. So it's not like they got outskilled or anything like that. They just get dunked on. And then everybody else is fighting a 3v1, which is miserable and nearly unwinnable unless you're all on comms and brought the right perks. It's just bad for the health of the game. When you're tunneling at like 1 or 2 gens, like you're just trying to win the game. Like if you tunnel 1 or 2 gens, you do you, dude. You're trying to get your pressure back that you lost. The problem, like with many things, which is like, you know, in many balance problems in many games, is like it's hard to keep tunneling in the hands of people who use it as a catch-up mechanic versus the people who use it to force a comp-style game that, because you're in a pub environment, has no response or no counterplay. You're taking advantage of the pub environment to exploit a victory by forcing them into a competitive style match that they're not ready for. And it's like almost impossible to keep it in the hands of people who do it as a catch-up mechanic that's fair versus people who, you know, are kind of exploiting a pub environment, which is why solo queue is getting buffed for many other reasons.
Throw such a tantrum, but there's something that's even worse. And that is the fact that all of these things would affect the team, right? You as a survivor, even though you're an individual, you sometimes have to suffer from the decisions that you as a team have made. And all of these perks and all of these effects that could help with tunneling would feel very, very bad on an individual level. Mm-hmm. So if the killer gets rewarded for hooking 3 different survivors, the 4th survivor is going to be doing a gen. Now the gen will become slower, let's say, and he will throw a tantrum. Simply, he will be like, well, I am very good. My teammates are really bad. I'm here not being caught doing gens. Why do my gens feel slower now? Why are my gens slower when I am so good at the game and my teammates are just bad and they're just getting caught? It's not my fault.
I've felt this way before. Good. He's kind of doing this facetiously to make fun of like immersed survivors. That Dredge wouldn't chase me that one match today. You remember that? That Dredge didn't chase me. He downed me like once. And then I wiggled off anyway. And then he got me in the end game. But like, homie couldn't catch me and chase. So all I could do was M1. Like, he literally, every time we got into chase, like, we'd chase for, like, 20 seconds, then he'd be like, I can't catch her, I'm leaving, you know? Like, it's not only immersed survivors that end up in this situation. It's killers who, like, literally will refuse to chase people who aren't, you know, who will, you know, loop them and waste their time. So that punishes people that are good loopers as well, which is not the direction you want to go. Not the direction you want to go.
And that is perhaps an even bigger problem. Nobody, as a survivor, wants to admit that they need to carry the responsibility of the entire team. They want their individual place to matter when they play good. When they play bad, obviously, they want to get a bailout from perks or teammates or whatever. So this would also be a problem. If down the line, the devs announce that killers will have some kind of debuff or survivors will have some kind of debuff for hooking multiple people, you will find that survivors are actually super against this idea because they'll feel this on an individual level is unfair.
Yeah, because gens are boring. It's not about like gens are boring, dude. Like gens are boring. Like, nobody wants to sit on gens. We sit on gens because we have to. You know, like we sit on gens because we have to. It's not the fun part of the game. It's not the exciting part. So if you're being punished, like you already don't want to do the gen. Or at least good players don't. Good players already don't want to do the gen. So now you're being punished on something you don't even want to do in the first place. You know, it's like it's pain.
And how do you get past that? How do you get past the feeling that it is unfair? How do you tell someone that even if you make a lot of other changes that are all positive, how do you tell someone that their gen is going to be 5% slower, even though they've done nothing wrong, or they've only done one tiny little thing wrong? People won't accept it, and they will throw a tantrum.
Hot take, I think the 90-second gens are fine. It's the mechanics and perks in this game that allow you to speed it up that are obnoxious. I would like to see, like, I would ask him this question. Would you still feel this way if there were no gen slowdown and no gen rush in the game? I would ask him if you could not speed up gens, or if you only could to like a insignificant amount, like only like a resilience amount, like just a tiny bit. And same thing on the killer. If the average gen slowdown was only as strong as say Thana rank 1. Or not rank 1, but Thana at like 1 injury. Or like maybe even like not Jolt, because Jolt's pretty alright. But like maybe a weaker version of Jolt. Like would these arguments still exist the same way? Right? Like, would any of this exist if we didn't have to deal with the obnoxious gen-focused perk meta that we always have to deal with? The game is supposed to be killer-sided? How did you come to that conclusion? In a 4v1 game, the 1 is supposed to be the sided? That would kill the game if that was the case. If the game was supposed to be killer-sided, then the game would, like, die. If they make the game aggressively killer-sided, it's a 4v1, so that's out of 5 people, 4 out of the 5 people are just getting dunked on all the time. That would drive away most of the game's population. I wonder what the game would be like. Yeah, I feel like the game would just, like, would any of these problems exist if like, gen regressive versus gen slowdown just was not prominent? Was not prominent. Like, was not prominent.
And the devs have to measure this into their account when they make changes. If they want to play it safe, and this is a big fear, they might put out a PTB or put out a suggestion, and then people will be like, oh no, we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this. And then the devs will be like, okay, you know what? We don't do it.
Yeah, gen blocking is way better. Gen blocking is way better. It's a timeout. It's a chillax. Go do totems, go heal, go chase, go have fun. It's not stop playing the game or redo gameplay you've already done. It's just go do something else. There's other stuff in the game. Go do a totem. Go see what's in a chest. Go heal your friend. Go do something like that. I feel like the base kit, honestly, especially after the 6.1 change, I feel like the base kits of both sides are fine. That might be a hot take, I guess. I don't feel like it should be. I feel like the base kit of both sides are fine. The base kit killer versus the base kit survivor is fine right now. Once we get like solo queue having like the quality life changes, it's mostly just the perks, honestly. You just gotta make it not agitated by the perks. Survivors can't do gens fast. When they stack on a gen, they get a regression penalty. The gen still goes quicker, but it's only slightly. It's things like prove and toolboxes that make it like that just nullify that. That's the problem. And stacking on gens at the beginning of the match is a bad idea. Until like 2 or 1 gens, it's mostly stupid to do that. Killer side, like, you know, a lot of like only certain killers have passive slowdown, like Wesker, Pig, Pinhead. Most killers don't have passive slowdown. So like the base kit's fine. You know? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just the perks that agitate it, to be honest.
The game as it is, it makes us enough money. It puts, you know, it keeps everything more or less in check. We don't really need to fix anything if we don't want to.
Wow.
Because people keep playing our game, so alright, sure.
He's distant behavior. Oh.
So yeah.
You made him mad.
That idea makes me really sad. The fact that even though there are ways to change this, once those changes come, we might just complain about them and ultimately not make them welcome to the game. I've already seen this a lot. I've already seen a lot of changes that ultimately were good for the game, have massive resistance and massive backlash early on before, you know, they could settle into the game. So I just hope that if you see these changes in the future, and I expect these changes could be happening in the next 6 months, maybe next year, who knows. I hope that you have an open mind and that you know exactly what to ask from the devs, or else, you know, we'll never get out of this hole and this loop of perks becoming more and more unbearable on both sides. Well, that was it. That was my thoughts.
That's interesting. That's interesting. He really thinks the base kit of the game is fundamentally... Huh. That's interesting. He really thinks that, like, fundamentally the base kit of the game is flawed. That's interesting. I feel like besides, you know, obviously solo queue is getting its buff, right? With all the notifiers, that's good. Some sort of, like, anti-tunnel mechanic would be nice. Or some sort of incentive not to tunnel. But then, like, what else is there? Like, you guys really think that, like, the base kit of both Killer and Survivor is still deeply flawed in a way that makes the game miserable? It's kind of right is wrong. He's he's ID'd a problem, but he's diagnosing it very strangely, I think is like my takeaway. Like he's diagnosed, he's found a problem, but he's diagnosing it like he's like, okay, well, you know, he's handing out the wrong medicine, it feels like. Like I think the base kits for both sides, especially after the solo queue update, I feel like that's gonna put both sides in a pretty like tame spot. And honestly, like, I know this makes killer mains mad, but like, Horde Survivors should be kind of the strongest thing in the game and stay that way. Like, you're quite literally outnumbered. And that's where a majority of the players are, is on the Survivor side. So, like, is that the most awful thing in the world? Is it going to make him play better? No, but, like, you can make more informed plays more often. You can make better informed plays more often. Right? Like, for example, a good example, like, if you see 2 gen indicators on your HUD and then 1 person in chase, you know you have to go get the save. You're the only one available. And just little stuff like that's going to save time. And time in DBD is gen time. That's wild. That's wild. I didn't like any of the suggestions. I didn't like, you know, survivors becoming more powerful after a tunnel. I didn't like rewarding killers with base kit mechanic for not tunneling. Like, I was like, those were wild suggestions I would not be okay with. In 4 out of 5 games, yeah, like that's why you see people on the DBD like Strawberry. That's why you see people like on the DBD forums like, oh my god, Pig's OP, because it's like, to a new player, yeah, probably. You don't know what, she's stealthy and weird, and I gotta get this hat off my head. You know, that's how you get weird conversations like that. I don't know. I feel like a lot of these changes that were suggested are really radical. It's something that needs to be done, I feel like, more directly. If you want to stop tunneling more directly. Something like reintroducing DS to like its previous form, or like, you know, ripping DS away from a perk entirely in some weakened version. But I don't feel like super buffing killer with slowdowns or super buffing survivor with gen rush is a good idea, regardless of the circumstances. Is that weird? Is that weird to me? Am I weird for that? I don't want them buffing. I don't want base kit slowdown or base kit gen rush ever on either side. I don't want base kit. I don't want base kit gen rush or base kit slowdown. That sounds annoying. No matter what side you're on, you're always going to be on the back end of someone's base kit like slowdown or gen rush, and it's just going to feel bad. DS wasn't stopping people with tunneling. It was. It was. People would tunnel anyway, but they would get punished for it. They would get punished for it. It would buy more time. And the time on DBD is gen time. To say, like, old DS was not stopping people from tunneling, I just don't agree with that. Like, especially, like, since I've played through many different versions of that perk being stupid. like old DS, like, deactivation DS was, like, probably its best form, and really did help kind of dissuade things. Because we're more scared of it, exactly. Being tunneled with DS, yeah, but it would eat. But like, I feel like you're like, okay, maybe you're seeing things from a different like angle. You're like, DS did not eliminate tunneling entirely. Very true, but it made the killer lose for it, or at least be in a bad spot. So that in combo with like, you know, the solo queue changes that they would have now. Like, the survivors would be able to, like, see that you're in chase constantly, see that you're being tunneling, react, and do generators, right? Or would slug for 60 whole seconds. Literally not do anything for 60 whole seconds. Give somebody a chance to pick you up, or 60 seconds on a gen while the killer's trying to wait out your DS. Like, I would take that. I would take that. Made it inefficient to try it? Yeah, that's the point. That's why it was good. Because it made it inefficient to try. Yeah, they didn't pick up with no hesitation because, yeah, there's no reason to fear it anymore. I guess it just, I don't want to see changes to, like, buffs. I don't want to see base kit gen rush or base kit slowdown. I don't think that's the way to solve the tunneling problem. That feels like, I don't know, that feels like giving, like I said, diagnosing it wrong. It's really giving the wrong, like, you ID'd the sickness, but you're giving the wrong medicine.